We've been dealing primarily with Europe and the non-Western world, so let's now turn our attention to colonial American design. And a couple of things to keep in mind. We have a number of different inputs coming into colonial America. We have, for example, the Spanish, the Dutch, aka the Germans, the Dutch, aka the Netherlands, and then we will have the English. And all of these societies are going to come in, they're going to look at what's there, and to some degree, they're going to borrow native ideas, and then their ideas from Europe will change based on the materials that they find, the craftsmanship that they can perform. Because, of course, we don't generally send the best people off to the colonies. In fact, for the English, for example, they frequently will send criminals to the colonies. But that's a whole nother story, and we'll get to that. So, of course, the Americas are going to be discovered. Lots of argument about who discovers it. It's not Columbus. Before Columbus, starting with Columbus, going backwards in time, we probably have the Bristol and the Basque fishermen who are coming to Massachusetts. They're doing so because they're fishing on the Grand Bank just off the east coast of the United States here for cod. And when they're fishing there in the summer, they want to catch the cod. They want to salt it to preserve it, which requires them to land somewhere. And they are probably landing in the what is today the northeast coast of the United States. Of course, they're keeping this fairly secret. They don't want people to know that these are good cod fisheries. Before them, we would have the Vikings, such as Leif Erikson, who of course comes as far as what he calls Vineland, which is here on the east coast of Canada. Before him, we believe that there was an Irish monk by the name of St. Brennan, who came over in a leather ship, basically island hopping, very northern route via Iceland, Greenland, etc., down probably into the area of eastern Canada, maybe into the United States. That's a little bit questionable. We also know that it's possible that China actually came in and was familiar with the West Coast. Although they didn't colonize, they may have been aware that it was there. They may have traded with the peoples of these areas. These are all being put out there just so that you understand there's a lot of quote-unquote discovery of the Americas. The difference is everyone's kind of keeping it secret from one another, so no one really talks to each other and says, hey, by the way, we found this great place. It's called the Americas. It's pretty awesome. Of course, once we do get rolling, starting with the Spanish, we will see very fast colonization. Initially, the Portuguese get involved with Brazil. We will see the French and the Dutch in South America. We will see the Spanish across the Americas from Mexico and really the western United States and Florida throughout the Caribbean, all the way down South America. We will see the French very involved, especially in the the Midwest, excuse me. Very wrong there. Especially in the Midwest and up the eastern coast of Canada. We see the English getting involved in Canada as well as in what is currently the United States, and the Russians get involved in Alaska, but also down into California. So, of course, they colonize, and we're going to be focusing at first on the Spanish. Now, the Spanish are going to colonize the Americas starting in the Caribbean and then moving into Mexico. And when they do, they come across the Aztec. And we've talked about the Aztec. They do have furniture in the Aztec world. It's very simple and straightforward. Oftentimes, it's woven from very basic wooden materials, primarily from reeds and things that you can find along the edge of a lake. Some wood, but usually very thin slats of wood. They're using that because wood is fairly hard to come by in the highlands of Mexico. So we see stools like you see here on the right. We see very simple box-like forms that they would use as stools, but they're primarily a floor culture. And that's not uncommon throughout the Americas. Now, when the Spanish show up, they're going to invade, they're going to take over, and they're going to bring disease, which decimates the population, as you see here. And this is probably This is just the population of Mexico itself at 22 million. More than likely, the current estimates are between 100 and 150 million people living in the Americas when the Europeans arrive. And disease will decimate that population, which means a lot of the furniture, a lot of the crafts will die off with many of the populations. So what do we get when these societies collide? We get hybridization. It's not as simple as to say that the Spanish simply take over and everything becomes Spanish, because there are far fewer Spanish than there are indigenous peoples. So what you end up with is the Spanish asking the indigenous peoples to create things. They're using indigenous artisans who build homes or do paintings, etc. And they're going to try and incorporate their Spanish ideas. In the case of art, such as what you're looking at on the left, we have a feather painting showing a Christian miracle. Now, the person who created this prior to 1576 had no real idea of what Christianity was. He's being given a series of symbols and told to create it using his own art form, in this case, feather painting. Or we get depictions of centaurs, something that the indigenous American peoples would never have known anything about, in a fresco in Mexico. So they're doing that in terms of art. In terms of furniture, they're going to, at first, try and create situations where the indigenous artisans are being given designs, and they're going to try and get as close as they can to the European model. Now, when we're dealing with hybridization, things go both ways. The Spanish will pick up ideas from Mexico, ideas like food, chocolate, and chiles. They will pick up various forms of architecture. They will import architecture from other colonies and other groups that colonize them. So these things all work together. It's never clear cut. It's never as simple as the conqueror gets to decide everything.